Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Today we have Dr. Marni Feuerman here with us. She is an expert therapist. I've known her for quite some time. She specializes in marriage and family counseling issues such as that. And Marni, why don't you give everybody a little introduction about who you are, what you do, your background, and all about you.
Sure. Yes, I'm Dr. Marni Feuerman, and I'm a licensed therapist. My office is in Boca Raton here in South Florida, and I do a lot of couples therapy. That's one of my specialties. So I try to, work with, I would say, every kind of situation you can imagine with couples. Sometimes it's minor issues, sometimes they're highly distressed. I've worked with people even on the brink of divorce where they're trying to decide what's the next step for them in their relationship. And I also do some individual therapy as well. And again, usually in the relationship type wheelhouse. And anyway, so yeah, and I enjoy it. I've been in private practice for a very long time and practicing in general for over 20 years.
Okay, great. And you are the author of the book Ghosted and Breadcrumbed, which I do have a copy here, right? So tell us just a little bit about how that's been, because I know that came out last year, and
Sure. Well, I write a lot as well. I'm a freelance writer, and I have a lot of content online, and I started to notice a trend with some of the articles I was writing that were more directed towards women in relationships that were unhealthy, or they're with a partner who was perhaps emotionally unavailable or even abusive. There was a very popular article that I wrote about women in relationships with married men, the ultimate unavailable man. And so I thought, wow, there's a lot of people that must be in this situation. And certainly with what I see with couples, I felt like I had a lot of good information that I could offer women who were trying to figure out how to have a healthy relationship, especially if they've never had one before. I find that a lot of times people tend to repeat patterns. So they might be with one type of person, they leave that relationship only to find themselves having deja vu, and they're in another very similar type relationship. So I wrote Ghosted and Breadcrumbed, Stop Falling for Unavailable Men and Get Smart About Healthy Relationships.
Another
that came out. Yeah, there it is. It came out last year. Luckily, it seems to be resonating with the people that are reaching out and buying it. And there's a lot of good information in there for people to stop repeating these negative patterns and hopefully find a fulfilling, loving relationship. So that's what the book is about. Thank you so much for showing it.
Of course. Well, I know you and I did a bunch of stuff for that last year when it came out. So I probably need a few more copies to give to clients.
Absolutely, yes.
But I wanted to have you on so we really can talk about the coronavirus, what's going on in your world as a therapist, specifically with relationships, right? Because from us, criminal defense lawyers, okay, we know DUIs are down. A lot of the going out and making a stupid decision crimes are down. But we're all kind of hearing stories and bracing for the at-home crimes, the domestic violence, the child abuse, the sex cases, the things that traditionally do happen behind closed doors. And now you've had increased alcohol consumption at home. You've had increased stress. We're in the middle of this global pandemic. People are losing their jobs, and they're not able to go out and burn steam or rage, in public. So a lot of people are doing that at home. So what have you seen from your perspective?
Yeah, this has been a really tough situation for a lot of people. So they just like you said, they're under a significant amount of stress. And so whereas they might have had these other outlets, not necessarily productive or good outlets, let's say going out to a bar, getting drunk and driving certainly isn't a good thing. But they're no less stressed, probably more so, but now they're stuck at home. what I think that they're doing is they're taking the stress out on the easy targets, which are often, unfortunately, their family members. But also if somebody is out of their normal routine. Okay, so I'm seeing that a lot. People are used to going to work every day. Now they're not able to. Some people have hope that down the line they're going to go back to their jobs or things will change. But we also have a set of people who that really isn't going to change. They're starting at ground zero. They perhaps completely lost their job. So they also have a loss of income, which is very, very difficult to deal with.
And what you see a lot, I mean, I'm sure that financial issues and disagreements or financial stress plays a huge role in relationships, right?
Yeah, I heard this phrase about businesses that those that were struggling before are probably going to be obliterated because of this.
Right.
And I think we can say the same about relationships. If people have been struggling already and now there's a major financial crisis, well, we kind of can imagine the outcome of that. So it's going to be even harder for those people. You have people that are also in different phases of the relationship. So perhaps they just got married, they're newlyweds, or they've been married a long time and they've got a nice stable situation. Those people are probably going to do the best. And then we have people that there were already issues and problems and they were already struggling. Those are the ones that are probably going to be the hardest hit by this.
Right. And we talked earlier about relieving stress, and we kind of defaulted towards negative ways, but let's also keep in mind there's a lot of positive ways that people relieve stress in a social environment, right? We can't go to the gym anymore, right? we can't. Some people like to go shooting. Some people, at a shooting range. Some people just like to go, out and have a gathering or a poker night, or people like to ride ATVs. Whatever people do, go for a nice jog or run or anything out in public and be social. And when we're living under stay-at-home orders and what's essential and what's not essential, there's a lot of good ways to relieve stress that people also can't do as well. So yeah, it's hard.
I'd say people are starting to get creative, which is wonderful. I love that. Luckily we can still go outdoors. So I would say if you can go outside, absolutely do it, maybe even a couple times a day. I think people are also bringing out things that maybe they wouldn't normally do, but it kind of reminds me, I know I'm kind of aging myself here, but if I think about the times that I grew up in, we didn't have internet. So we already were playing board games and doing puzzles or, creating artwork, not on the computer, but just like painting or drawing, or there were so many things people did. So I think people can keep in mind that the things that we can do to relieve stress have existed a really long time. We've just kind of floated away from them, and we've gotten more absorbed in technology, whether it's the computer, iPads, TVs, movies, endless 500 channels to choose from. We didn't have that. So I almost feel like it's going back to basics. And I think people just have to remember that the solutions are probably within them. These are things that usually people can come up with if they're just sort of redirected to do that. And you may even, the good news is you can discover a side of yourself that maybe you didn't realize existed, for the better. You might discover something that, I didn't realize that I would really like this activity, or there's something new I can learn. Online courses are great. There's millions of them out there. You can learn a new skill. So you may not have every resource available to you, but you have certain resources such as time. Time that, we really do have a lot more of that. Most of us are saying that, we have time, which was always an issue in our busy lives before that. And so how do you want to use that time? And I think there's lots of ways that people can do that are very healthy and very productive.
Right. So let me give you a scenario. We have a fairly new couple, maybe been together a few years, right? But they're struggling, and let's say you were seeing them, what specific tips would you have for them just to continue to work and build on the relationship when maybe there are some of these stressors in their lives?
Yeah, well, I think number one, when I work with any couple, I like to look at their bond, their connection, how they're talking to each other. Not only what's the content of the discussion, because we know there's pretty typical ones that cause people to fight and argue, but maybe, more so how they're talking to each other. So sort of like the underlying mechanics of their discussions. And so I just encourage people to make these attempts to talk and to go a little bit deeper. So not just talk about the facts of something, but also how they feel about it, how things are affecting them. I mean, we like to look at our partners as a resource for us, an emotional resource, someone that we can go to when things are difficult or when we are stressed or upset about something or we've had something bad happen to us. It's good for us to go and connect with somebody, preferably if you have a partner, then that's the perfect person that you're going to want to talk to. And so I just really like to help that conversation along. And sometimes I'm holding people to kind of go a little deeper. And that's what really creates that glue that holds people together, is that they feel really emotionally connected to each other.
No, I definitely agree with that. So what tips would you have? Because, with some of these shelter in place orders and just, with our lives being changed, there are some relationships that just are toxic. And that whether it's a husband, a wife, it could be male, female, whatever, where somebody needs to feel like they, like they're just not safe or they need to get out from this relationship. So, since that's kind of the opposite of the couple that wants to stay together and is just struggling situationally because of stress, what advice would you have for that person, especially with the coronavirus?
Oh boy, well, that's a tough situation. I would say if you really fundamentally feel unsafe, like your life is in danger, then I know that there's options for those people to get out. And I would say they do the same thing you would do if there wasn't this pandemic going on. So I know that there's domestic violence and abuse resources out there. If you have to call the police, you have to call the police. Right. If you have to go to a shelter, or preferably if there's a family member that you can go to, I would say you're going to have to do that. But if you're unsafe in a way where it's not a physical danger situation where it's just, oh, this person is very hostile or nasty or angry, or it's more like the emotional level that sometimes people get, where they feel very intimidated or they feel manipulated, but they don't feel that maybe their life is in danger. I would say to those people, just know that there's probably something that you've been doing this whole time to manage this situation. And you're going to have to keep doing those things. So whatever strategy you're using to avoid or minimize conflict, keep things at a very superficial level, whatever you have to do to maintain that until we reach sort of the end of the road and there's some other solutions and options, I would say you're going to want to do your best to do that. And I know sometimes people are in a situation, especially if they have kids, where they really are stuck and they can't do a whole lot more. But I think sometimes people aren't giving themselves enough credit with how well psychologically they've been coping, but also that they've been doing their best to manage the situation and contain it, just so it doesn't get worse. And so I would just want people to keep doing that. And the other thing is sometimes I just say to people that if things are getting really heated for you in the house, maybe there's conflict, it's okay to say, hey, we're both really stressed right now. We might have been saying things we don't really mean. Externalize that this coronavirus is sort of an invisible enemy, okay, that's out there. It's okay to blame that. You don't have to blame each other. So that's something that I like people, to kind of think about too, that might be helpful for them. And then the other thing is when you're wanting to maybe accomplish something, or you're trying to get something done with a partner that's uncooperative, so break it down, make these very small behavioral requests. I would like it if you would do X, or it would make me feel safer if you did this or that, or, just make it much smaller. Sometimes people can, they'll respond better if it's just sort of a small, digestible chunk, as opposed
Right.
to,
Right.
you're acting like a jerk, or I don't like that you're doing, and it's something really big.
Instead of going 0 to 100, just creep it up a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just break it down much smaller. And sometimes people do respond to that.
And so one thing that, I think there's a lot of good that it actually is coming from the virus and just the way that our lives are changing. Of course, we all wish that it's not here, but we're the most adaptable species, and love the creativity and just the new things that are going on in our lives. But with therapists specifically, the rapid move to telehealth, and I think now a lot of the barriers are over or have been reduced in order to get a therapist. And right, because as of now, location is gone. Location is irrelevant, and all the things that come with location. Driving and work, and do I have time? Right, you can get a therapist or even a doctor at your fingertips now. Have you seen specifically from your clients, how have they adapted to the telehealth and in their sessions with you?
Some people have said, I'm going to hold off. I really prefer the in-office sessions, face-to-face. So they're holding off. I've had some hold off, but then they reach out because they said, we thought we could hold off, but we don't want to.
2 weeks go by and they're like, I need you.
Yes. And then I've had some that were just like, okay, that it is what it is. We'd rather see you online than not see you.
Right.
So the accessibility has gone way, way up, just like you said. There's a lot more availability, and all, they've lifted a lot of restrictions now too. So I would just encourage people to definitely seek the help and get the help and not wait if you need it. I generally find when people wait, things tend to get worse. And all you're really committing to, if this makes it easier for people who maybe aren't sure about doing something like counseling online, is that really you're committing to that initial session, that initial visit. Just like they are with you when they go in to meet you, they want to get a sense of you. They want to, see, is there a rapport? Do I trust this person? Do I like what they said? Does what they're saying make sense? That's all you're committing to. You can say no, after that, or it's not for me, or, what, I think I do want to go, but I just don't, that person maybe wasn't right for me. That's okay. That happens to, to the best of us. So that's all right. So I would just encourage people to give it a chance, to just put themselves out there to get the help if they need it and not wait, and know that there's all different, price levels too. And I've been hearing about people being able to access help at a really, really affordable rate, which is great too. So I would just say get the best help that you can afford, and don't wait to get it.
Right, absolutely. And your industry and mine, we're service-based industry. It's about building relationships and really helping, taking care of people.
Right.
So, yeah. So now, what advice do you have for people that are in a new relationship? Let's say you have a couple who just started dating in January or February, and here they are 2 months into their relationship, and this whole thing happens, and they can't really see each other for many different reasons. I'm just very curious.
Yeah.
How does that work in the times of the coronavirus?
Yeah, I think it could be really good or really bad. I think there's a lot of good that can come from it, because I think, again, when I think about long ago, we're kind of going back to basics, where you have to see if you can talk, if you can sustain a conversation, if there's enough that, back and forth, interest in each other, and you feel like that rapport is going smoothly, that could be a really good thing for a new relationship. I would have, I guess, I would want people to stay hopeful about it, that maybe it can just create excitement for that day or the time where you can, actually see each other. I think it's a tricky situation if you're at that place where your relationship is like, do we, quarantine together? Do we quarantine apart? That's going to be a tough situation. And so I would probably encourage people to go more on the side of maybe quarantining apart, because I think otherwise it's too much pressure on the relationship too early. So I would probably discourage that, but know that you can still connect. It just may not be, physically, but you can connect, mentally, psychologically, emotionally. There can still be a significant amount of depth that you can build in your relationship just through the communication, just through talking to somebody. So I think it can be a really good thing, but you may get the information earlier on, oh, this isn't the right person for me. I thought they were, but I'm now seeing, because we've spent this time apart and it hasn't been sustainable, that maybe it wouldn't have been sustainable. So maybe you've even saved yourself some time, by, just having the separation. So I think it can go a lot of different ways.
Right. I could definitely see a situation where this amplifies the honeymoon phase, and all of a sudden it's just gone, and you're like, no, wait a minute, wrong person, so. And I can see people jumping in too early, thinking quarantining together would be a great idea, and it just being a complete and utter nightmare. So.
Right. So then you're going to have, another problem on your hands, and maybe the relationship would have gone somewhere, it would have succeeded, but there was too much pressure too early, and it caused enough of a problem where people end up splitting up.
Right. So how are we going to be in the future? Whether it's 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, when this whole thing dies down, and because eventually we will get back to our normal lives. Now, I think there's going to be a new normal, right? Just like any big major change in us, in our history, right? Things will never be exactly the same, but we will settle in to whatever the new normal is. So what do you see in the future of just, couples and relationships, like I said, 6 months to a year from now?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some bit of trauma that kind of floats along with all of us because of this. I think people are going to look back and think, wow, that was an extremely stressful time, that it left its mark. And I don't want to sound like dramatic here using the term trauma, but I think it just depends on the person, depends on how resilient they are, and it depends also on what has happened to them because of this. So I think there's going to be some longer lasting effects, and I think it's going to be a long time before people feel like, I feel really safe again in this world, but I think everybody's going to be changed. We're going to be like on our toes more. We're going to be more aware and wanting to know, what's going on, what's happening, needing the information, prepping a little more. So I think that's what's going to happen. But I'd say if there's couples that have gone through significant stress with this and made it through, hopefully they'll be stronger because of it. They say that, if you can get through adversity, and we all know that every relationship has ups and downs and good times and bad times, that kind of comes with the territory. So if you make it through, I would say you're probably going to be, stronger because of it. But there's going to still be some residual impact that people may have to deal with. And you may find like that there's a surge of people who are seeking mental health treatment, but it's delayed, it's just happening later.
Right. Well, exactly. And I think there's going to be a lot of things delayed. I think, for us, what we do with criminal defense, I think there's going to be a significant spike in cases, probably, third and fourth quarter of this year, when people get out more and just, need to have some kind of release. And I think you're spot on about trauma. that this is traumatic, and those scars can be with you, and right, as you know, way down below and people don't even know why they're doing some things until they go through a bunch of sessions with you until they start figuring that stuff out, right? So I definitely think this is going to leave its mark for a while, but as in anything, if you're not growing, you're dying, and I think it's all incumbent upon us to really just grow and adapt and change and be physically healthy, mentally healthy, and just continue, because what choice do we have? Right, we have to move forward.
Right.
So yeah, but
exactly.
But Marni, this has been great talking to you. Getting some great advice about just relationships and new relationships, old relationships. Right, there's so many different complexities going on. Right. And hopefully we don't see the rise in domestic violence or child or sex cases. We really hope not. Although it is, if it does happen, it happens. And
the stuff with the children's probably my biggest, is my biggest concern out there, like you said, because it's hard, for people to be home with their kids 24/7. And if there was already some abuse going on pre-existing, and now the kids are there all the time, yes, it's going to happen. It's a very, very sad, piece of this.
Right. Well, even with our laws, from my perspective, we see cases where discipline, there's that line, and sometimes in just a split second, the line from, proper discipline to abuse happens, and it's not where my client wakes up that morning and says, I'm going to beat my child.
Yeah,
right?
Sometimes it's just purely situational with the kids and also between partners. Yes.
Right. So, but I think that's why communication is key, especially on these, extremely stressful times for certain people.
And it's not unusual for me to see people who don't know how to reduce the escalation of their emotions when they're in conflict. So it's not an unusual thing, but people can learn how to effectively express themselves and in a way that gets their point across and gets their needs met and is assertive, but doesn't cross over to that point, like you said, that line where it's aggressive, and then they can end up getting in trouble, which we really want to avoid. So
right, because I'm sure we've both seen it where the client is a truly genuinely good person, and they just and there's regret and shame. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, well, it was great talking to you. So now, Marni, how can anybody who's listening to this, how can they get in touch with you, reach you, if they have questions, or maybe even if they're interested in seeing you, on a professional level?
They can just go to my website. I have a lot of information, and all the contact info's on there. It's thetalkingsolution.com. So that's all one word, thetalkingsolution.com.
Perfect. Any parting words for the people that may be listening to this?
Just good luck to everybody out there. Stay strong, stay safe. We will get through this. We're all in the same boat together. I am too. And so I think we have to just keep our eyes on, the future, that we're going to get past this one day. It will happen.
Right. I agree. All right. Well, Dr. Marni Feuerman, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule for us to just have a little chit chat on this. This is part of our series just with community leaders and people that we know and trust. And, again, everything that we're doing with this is just to help each other, bolster our community, give advice, because we're not getting a lot of that from the news. So no, right? We're not. So I really do think, so I think it's incumbent upon, the community leaders and our community business owners and just people like you and me to really help each other and give great advice so we all can get through this together. And, so thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, my pleasure. You're welcome.
All right. We'll talk again soon, Marni. Take care.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye.